just like in real time, reflecting on my own life. I'm ready to move forward. You know what? This should be a Mourning My 20s. Let's make this a Mourning My 20s. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nisa. If you're new here, and if you're not, welcome back. Today we are going to be mourning my 20s, and I have recorded this video before with the slightly dramatic entrance. Today we are mourning my 20s. My 20s are over. But we're gonna do it again, but this time we're gonna be real time, real feels, raw emotions. When I was about 20 or 21, I ended that 5-year relationship and I started living for myself. And I felt very, very lost, but also very optimistic because it felt like a fresh start. I served at Olive Garden and I served at McCormick and Schmick's for the primal, important years of my life. I met a lot of really incredible people when I was serving at Olive Garden and McCormick and Schmick's. I have a running series right now called Reminiscence, where I'm essentially just uploading a bunch of old vlogs that I had recorded but I never edited or uploaded. And I'm just like catching up on all of those. I'll leave a link in the card if you want to watch that, if you're curious about it. I also made a video called Closing the Houston Chapter, where I'm essentially talking about my time living in Houston, and that video pretty much goes over my early 20s and what that experience was like. So I'll leave a card for that as well. But to kind of summarize that, I met such incredible people that really helped shape me to being a better person now. And I'm so grateful for everybody that I met in that time in my life. You were all incredible, and you were all incredible then, and I'm sure you're all just as incredible now. I'm so grateful for all of you. When I was 24, I think it was, I had to move out of my very first apartment that I bought all by myself with all my own money. At that time, I had to transfer to another Olive Garden. This was also the time frame where I was traveling a lot. I would just get in my car and go somewhere. And at the time I was like, I do it because I feel like it, because I have so much freedom. But deep down I knew that like I felt distressed. I was running from a lot of things that I wasn't ready to face, and I just felt very lost. I felt like I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know why I was doing anything anymore. At the time, I was listening to a whole lot of Alan Watts and Ram Dass and Terence McKenna. I was listening to like all these people that had these like philosophical, big brain psychonauts, people that just had big ideas and big thoughts. So at this time, I had just like woken up. I just started being so much more aware of myself, my placement in this universe and on this planet, and it felt like it was so much to bear. And all the while I was having to shift within the time span of a year, moving 3 times. So it was just very stressful, and I was in my car because I was just trying to find my purpose, and I was running from myself trying to do that. I look back at little Nisa back then. I just want to give her a hug and tell her it's okay, and you don't need to go about life in this chaotic, frantic way. You can just like be at peace with yourself. At the time, I was in the process of learning how to do that. So I was still with myself and like in silence by myself. And there were some places I went to where I did know people and I would like see them, but it was usually like, it wasn't for an extended period of time. Like I would only be there for a day or a few hours before I went to another state. And that's just the way that I was doing it. Back then, I was just like hopping around because I was just lost. And I thought I would be able to find what I'm looking for out in the world, which in a way, I will say, like traveling the way that I did, although in hindsight was very frantic, I think it was really important for me to grow as a person to do that. I think that it did introduce me to a lot of things in the world that I needed to see and I needed to experience, including the things that were going on within me. I wouldn't have experienced the inner monologues and the feelings had I not gone to some of these places and had I not been on these extended drives by myself. That's essentially what I was going through at that time, until a friend of mine at the OG, at this new location I was working at, he just came up to me one day and told me, hey, you're not sleeping in your car anymore, you're gonna come live with us. So him, his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's mom. So I moved. This was like the 3rd time moving within the span of a year. I am so grateful for them. Had I not moved in with them, I wouldn't have experienced the people and the things that I experienced when I was working at Trilogy Brew. Working at Trilogy Brew really solidified in me how important and how incredible art and music and creativity can be. I met some of the most talented people I had ever met before working there. Being around people who so passionately loved the things that they did and were so genuine about it, and just such nice people. Whenever you surround yourself with people like that, it just makes you want to be that. It makes you want to like take after that. And then whenever I'd come home to Izzy and G, it would just be like such chill vibes. They were my reminder to just be chill, to just like take it easy. Take it easy. They were just the coolest, chillest people I knew. Now, whenever I was living out there, I was still visiting my friends from the OG that I worked at originally, because we ended up becoming really good friends. They were the closest thing I had to friends that were creative and musicians. Like even before that, like I never really was around it. It was more just something I did on my own. We called ourselves the, we had a couple of names. Oh, Egotistical Elephant. Because we were like, it was like a funny, like a silly little spin-off of Modest Mouse. So we were like, we're Egotistical Elephant. That was our band name. And I was just like constantly around these people. It just made me feel so much more confident, much more creative, and just better about life as a whole. I was still feeling lost, but I didn't feel like I needed to travel thousands and thousands of miles away to find something that was within me. Moving forward into 25, I made enough money to move out on my own again, and I decided to move to Austin. Now this move was my first big move. I never lived like so far away from my family and even my very close friends that I had made, and I was starting over. But I think because I had felt so fulfilled and my friends had brought out so much confidence in me, I felt so good and so optimistic. It just felt so bittersweet, and I was like, I'm gonna see you guys again. We need to plan a little more in advance. Moving out here was incredible. It happened to be right before the pandemic hit, so that was great. That was a great time. I got a job at Stars Cafe. So anybody that's OG Austinites, you remember, no longer there anymore. At the time, we were owned by Vince Violoff. He was in Rat Race, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, it wasn't too bad working under Vince. He was very chill. The only issue I had with that job was it was such a small staff, and the joint was 24 hours, so everybody worked 8-hour shifts. So it was like 8, 16, 24. So there were 3 servers, and then Vince would pop in every now and again to do like management stuff, because he also, like, he had other things he was doing. He wasn't just like running Stars, he had other things he was doing. But it just wasn't sustainable for me. Because I felt so inspired and I felt so aligned, I was like, you know what? I want to be a dancer. At the time when I was living in Spring, I actually started taking belly dancing lessons. Now, I had been on the drill team in high school, and I had danced in college. I did some jazz. Like, I was a dance major for a very brief period of time, and so I started taking belly dancing lessons. We had an event, so we did our performance. I was called over by one of the go-go dancers, Astrid Arcane, and they asked me like if I had done this before, and I was like, no. And they asked me if I wanted to be one of them, so be a go-go dancer. I was like, heck yeah, that would be awesome. I didn't even realize I was auditioning for anything, but she just asked me and I did it. With that being said, whenever I moved out here, I was like, I want to keep dancing. I want to do more. Because we would do gigs, like we had gigs every now and again. So I was doing things on my own. So I was like, you know what, why don't I just be an instructor? I had actually gotten another job at the best coffee shop in all of Austin, Epoch Coffee. I had just started this job. I was about to start doing the job at the Y. I was gonna renew my contract for my other teaching gig. It really felt like my life was just like in full bloom. I felt so good. and then COVID. I'd only got to work a couple of shifts before the lockdowns happened, and they were really there in the community as a whole. Just such an incredible place, and I'm so forever blessed. Whenever the lockdown started like kind of like peeking open again and people were kind of slightly opening back up, we were allowed to go outside. There was one day where I went to Mount Bunnell and I climbed the gazebo. I was just admiring the sun, taking in the vitamin D. I'm not gonna get too much into it. If anybody's curious, I did make a whole video talking about it, linked in the card in the description. I fractured my ribs and I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. I was in so much pain. It was just terrible to experience, but in hindsight, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I went through that because it forced me to slow down. And this was the time where I was seeping into my next chapter of painting. So I just started painting just for fun. And then I had a slight demand for them where people were like, oh, this is really cool. Can you make me something? And then that kept going, and I had pretty consistent requests for painting. So I was just taking on commissions, and that was kind of helping me pay for things. And I never expected this to be a thing I'd be doing, but here I am doing it. And this also is where I started getting requests for prints. So I started making prints of my paintings, and that actually is what inspired this video, where I went to my first print shop online and I made some velvety, beautiful prints of my art. So this was a chapter that I was not at all expecting, but it was happening and I was there for it. I was very excited and grateful, and it was really, really fun to be able to make art and make money. And I just felt like time and time again, I kept getting shown that you can do this. This is a thing that can be done, and it's a thing that people do. People make money doing what they love and making art. I actually ended up getting really into herbalism. This was like me reliving something from my youth. Whenever I was very young, I've always felt very, very connected to the earth. And I started studying amateurly herbs and learning how to identify some of the things like local to Austin. I did an herbal apprenticeship for a little bit. So this section of my life really felt like that was what I was aligning towards. I felt like there was something that was holding me back from maintaining this chapter of my life of herbalism. Like, it was the direction I was supposed to go, but I ended up not going. I ended up doing something else. I got hired at a dance studio. I was really excited to get back into it, but in a way it almost felt like it was forced. So I think this is where I started feeling a lot of resistance, and things for me in my personal life started building up into what was happening in the beginning of 2025. Like, I felt like I shoved myself into a different direction. I feel like from maybe like 27 and a half, maybe 28 into 29, I was really just learning a lot about myself, and I was playing around with all of the hobbies that I had accumulated over the years. And I think it was just making me very confused about my own life and what my purpose is. I felt like the last 2 to 3 years were just such a blur. Those parts of me that I was running from, that I never actually confronted, I was almost forced to confront in my late 20s. In hindsight, I'm like, I was so stressed, and I put so much on my plate, and I was doing that because I didn't want to confront these things in me that I needed to confront. Because I wanted to run again, but I felt like I couldn't run. I felt like I can't go places right now. I have too many responsibilities. I've got things I gotta do. I need to stay here. So let me run away by giving myself a whole bunch of goals that don't really have to do with the internal work. They more have to do with the external work, like life and purpose. Everything I was running from in my early 20s, when I was driving all over the place and I was never home, it came back. Because you can't run from yourself. You can have all the fun and experience all the things, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's just going to be you in your head. It felt like I was almost forcing myself to go back to sleep. For me, it was like I tried and I kept having to face certain things. And at 30 years old, I can confidently say I feel so much better. I feel so much better as a person. I feel so much lighter. Like, I want to do these creative things again without resistance. Like, I feel like I can just do them. And even now, I do still struggle with it. I'll find myself having some kind of resistance to doing certain things, but I catch, like, it's so interesting because I catch myself now. Like if I'm having the thought, I'm like, why am I feeling resistant to do this? And then I start asking myself the questions, and I kind of see where they take me. And then sometimes I'll just ask myself, why do I feel resistance? And then I just do the thing. And I'm like, okay, this was fun. Like, why do I feel resistance? Like, it's something I'm still working through. It's not like everything was a cure-all once I hit 30, because I'm still working through it. But I can say the first half, like the first 6 or 7 months of 2025 were such a blur. I know I did things and I have accomplishments, but it just feels so blurry up until my boyfriend and I took a trip to Colorado. So it was my first time in a long time being out leisurely to Colorado, and it was just, it's kind of like, since that trip I feel so much happier. I can't really say exactly what it is, but I think it's because I didn't go there feeling like I'm running from something. I went there with somebody that I love, and I experienced the mountains again after a long time, and I had a lot of realizations of when I was there last time. And it's interesting because it's stuff that I knew, like once I left and Colorado the first time, once I left like driving around all these states the first time, I did like have these thoughts, but I never actually sat with them. And then to go back to this place and sit with, oh, I was here before, and this is how I was feeling when I was here last time. I was the most chaotic and frantic that I had ever been in my 20s, throughout my 20s. Like, I've had a lot of chaotic, frantic moments, but to leave the state, to like run away from yourself, I reconnected with so much creativity in my life that going back and then reconnecting with me running away was just, it's what I needed. That's the story of me now that I'm 30 years old. I just want to end this with a few notes, notable mentions, things that I learned in my 20s.